Yeah. A lot of times when I do Zooms, one or more of my cats get really interested in participating. So yeah, BroadwayCon, the convention and the convention, I don't know, tradition started, years ago, really with like sci-fi mostly.
Mm-hmm.
And, in the year since, it started to broaden, but Melissa Anelli, my friend and co-founder of BroadwayCon, she has a company called Mischief Management. And they first started doing conventions in the Harry Potter space because she was very involved in that community. And then she started branching out. And then we were talking about what, theater is so much about coming together in person anyway. So, everybody, you can only ever see theater if you show up. Right. And the people who are performing theater only get to perform for the people who show up. Right. So it seemed like kind of a no-brainer to try to create an event like this for the theater community. And one of the great things about BroadwayCon, which I think is a little different from other conventions, is because of the nature of the community of theater artists, we are, I think, much more generally directly involved with our audience. So we have that sort of sense of connection. So there's a sense of intimacy at BroadwayCon. The kinds of panels that are provided and offered are supremely wide ranging, and all sorts of different theater artists. And, there have been like stage manager panels that have been packed with an audience. And then there've been, composer panels and actor panels, and talking about social justice issues, talking about equality and diversity and inclusion. As well as telling fun stories about what it was like to be in the original cast of A Chorus Line or whatever it is, right. So it's a real mixture of that kind of programming that is, I think, exciting for all of us who are part of the creation of theater projects to get the chance to interact more directly with our audience, and also for audience members to have that kind of behind the curtain peek. And then there are also things like there are performances. There's like what we do. I think it's called. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's called Broadway Jukebox or something like that, or like where we've done things like I picked 4 songs and then the audience votes on which one of those songs they want me to perform with a live band kind of thing.
Right.
There's game shows. There's a wide range of kinds of programming, as well as meet and greet opportunities and master classes and autograph opportunities and photo ops and all the things. There's a marketplace that has any number of vendors selling their fan art or their, archival photos or, any number of things. So it's just a way to have an experience of being a part of the theater community on both sides of the stage, as a way to more directly connect with your fellow fans and also the artists who make the theater.
I mean, theater, like you said, is so much of a give and take between the audience and the artists, the people in the pit, everything. It's such a cohesive community, and it's so important to have that give and take. And there was so much of that missing during COVID, obviously, for everyone in every industry, but particularly with Broadway. So what's the vibe like now, since it's the first time back in a couple of years? I'm sure there's a level of excitement that's very high compared to
I think so. I think there's definitely excitement, and I also understand that there's some trepidation by some folks, which is completely understandable. The COVID is an ever-changing landscape. Right. Everyone involved will do their utmost to be responsible and safe, and be tested. I don't know all the exact protocols if they've been exactly laid out. So much of it is also determined by what the venue allows and what the city allows, and that's an ever-changing thing. But certainly everyone involved is extremely mindful of trying to be as safe as possible. For all the artists involved in the shows that are performing eight times a week, and all of the audience people coming to those shows and also coming to the convention. So, but yeah, I mean, there's one of the things about COVID. I mean, there's so many things about COVID, but I think from a theater maker perspective, yes, it brought enormous hardship to those of us who make theater. And I haven't personally been involved in a show for a number of years because of Star Trek Discovery, but I'm still involved in that community, and I saw it firsthand what was happening to my friends and colleagues. And at the same time, there was this reminder of how special it is to be in the room with theater. So, I hope that there's sort of a long-lasting ultimate benefit in terms of reawakening the rare and wonderful opportunities to all collectively come together and share in the glory of theater. If that's a positive outcome of these incredibly difficult and challenging last couple of years, I think that's for the benefit of everyone.
Well, you touched on earlier how it was developed, but why do you think it's important? You touched on a little bit for the theater community to have that constant interaction other than stage door, because we all know stage door can be crazy. I've done it with my kids. And there's that level of wanting to, that excitement is just, it's hard to contain. You see it. I mean, I don't know it from the other side of the barricade, but
I mean, stage dooring is a thing. It's become like its own verb. When in the heyday of Rent, which was but it was 25 years ago, 26 years ago that Rent first debuted, and it was a huge hit. And stage dooring was not really a thing then. So we could come out after the show and have really personal interactions with the 5 to 10 people that would wait outside. And I'm talking about this was as big a hit as there's ever been on Broadway. That's not possible anymore, for better and for worse. I mean, it's amazing to walk out of a theater as an artist and have all these people like showering you with that kind of loving attention. At the same time, I do miss those days when you could have more in-depth interaction. It's just impossible. It wouldn't be fair to all the people waiting, and there's just not an opportunity. There's too many people. So BroadwayCon, it's not like you can always have all of those in-depth interactions with individuals, but by having conversations, Q&A sessions, panels, there's more of an opportunity than to have a more in-depth interaction with these artists. That's beyond stage door, and it is also beyond just simply, oh my God, I love you, which is a nice thing to hear. But you get to actually engage on the approaches that people make as artists, and the content of the shows that they're a part of, and the stories and anecdotes that they have to share, and the great legends of the past that they've worked with, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a way of solidifying and continuing the great tradition of theater, which is also, going through all kinds of its own reckonings in this day and age. Every space is going through reckonings. So BroadwayCon also has that very much on its mind and its programming, and making sure that we're addressing and confronting and talking about and dealing with all of every aspect, trying to be as mindful as possible and as thorough as possible. And also, and not to forget the joy and the fun and the pleasure and the entertainment, but that theater can and does and should, I think, also change lives, change people's perspectives, open people's hearts, speak to injustice and speak to the dark corners of our society that don't get to be in the light very much. All of that. So all of that is also part of the mission of BroadwayCon. It's like trying to have everything addressed and talked about.
But it's very successful, and people, and again, I've attended in the past, it's a beautiful community of people. These people that are there are not just there because they're starstruck. They're there because they really want to get to know the performers, get to know what makes them tick, why they chose certain roles, why certain songs are important to them, why the theater community is how it is. And so it's a vital part, I think, of the Broadway community. It's becoming even more so, I think. Now,
I hope so,
everything.
And thank you. And part of our philosophy too is like all boats rise together, right? So if we celebrate everybody involved by this, this is one of the opportunities we have as a community to have this interaction that will help us all, I hope. People on both sides, people in the audience and people on the stage, to bridge that gap. There's a little bit of a separation that can occur, which is understandable, but it's not like, again, it's not like people it's not like intimate friendship evolves
Right.
necessarily, but a connection that is meaningful.
Yes.
And it's been a very, when I started telling my colleagues and friends about, BroadwayCon, not most theater people, unless they've been a part of like a sci-fi thing, they probably haven't ever been to a convention themselves as artists, So it was a little bit like, what is that? And
Right.
I've known Melissa, and I'd attended her conventions that she produced with her company, and I knew the feeling of it. I knew how much of a community event at its core that was really, it was meant to celebrate joy, for people to come together to be a part of something that everyone involved on both sides is passionate about. So it celebrates that. It's unapologetically in favor of that. It's not trying to be too cool for school. Like there's nothing about like, you can't get excited, everybody's happy to be. And I would tell people, and they're like, okay. And then overwhelmingly, from my friends and colleagues who participated, they were really lifted up by it and very happy to participate. And they felt like it was an example of community. And that was really meaningful to be able to say, yeah, we have done that. And we continue to do our best to do that.
It's funny when you mentioned stage door and rent, because I was one of those people that used to hang out outside and wait around, because I was also one of those people that waited for the tickets and did all that stuff. Sure. So I do recall those days when it was just people hanging out outside and saying, have you seen this? Yeah. Do you see how this is impacting everyone? And it was a real different, I don't like to say there's a good or a bad, or there's a different or a not different, but that time in Broadway was still a little gritty. It was still a little funky. It wasn't so Disney. Sorry, I didn't mean to, but sanitized. Let's put it that way. And that was the fun of it. That was like these people we knew as fans, and not to say that all performers were not like that, but we knew as fans, you guys were there. You were really delivering, and everyone was. But now sometimes there's a lot of transitory behavior in. Sure. They come in, they come out, and whatever. And sometimes I miss that as someone with a daughter who is, pray for me, looking to go into this someday. Sure. Yeah. So I kind of miss that in a way. I feel like that kind of devotion. We even saw it not long ago in the documentary Spring Awakening, how that was at that time. And so I think, yes, Broadway has to change. And all of these things are good, but sometimes I kind of look back on those days and go, oh, there was
I understand. I know. And Melissa, I met at the stage show, actually. She was a teenager, and we just talked and became friendly, and we just kept in touch over the years. And when she went to college, we got closer as she got older. And then, we did become close friends. We've said often over the years, I'm not sure that would ever be able to happen now.
Right. Exactly.
And so I'm grateful for the time that was available. And again, I'm grateful. I'm so happy that people are so excited when people that they love are on stage, that they shower them with praise at the stage, or at the same time, right. It does change the dynamic to some degree.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. This event now obviously is coming a little bit after the heels of the Tony Awards.
Sure.
So this Tony's, I think, other than the fact that it was seen by more people, was really kind of revolutionary this time. For the first time in a long time, there was a lot going on that maybe the average viewer who didn't follow the Broadway community as much missed. So what was your take on it?
Well, what you mean, like something like Strange Loop winning, you mean, or
Strange Loop winning, all of the way everyone was celebrated. You know what I'm saying? It was very more inclusive, I think, than ever before.
Yeah. Like I said, there's been a reckoning happening all over the world, really, certainly in our country, in our culture, and in the theater community, there's been a huge reckoning. And there's been a reckoning in TV and film too, but the theater community is a little more concentrated, a little more centralized. So I think that it's a little easier to move the needle probably because you have all these voices really collective and really sort of concentrated. So yeah, I'm not surprised that there's this, that the shift is happening a little more apparently in theater, and I'm happy to see that, and it's necessary, and it's meaningful. Yeah. So I mean, I'm encouraged by that. I'm happy to see it, and it doesn't, you know, I believe that it's deeper than lip service. I believe it's deeper than symbolic. You know, I think that it's sincerely taking place. People are really searching. People on all sides of the curtain are really searching inside their hearts and minds to see the ways in which we've sort of allowed certain status quo aspects of our industry to occur. And, you know, we're all willing to like really investigate that. I think, you know, I mean, I think most I can't speak to every single person. There might be there might be some people who are like kicking and screaming, but yeah, I mean, I think it's wonderfully encouraging. You know, and it's about time.
I mean, you really were, when they used the term Broadway baby, you really were. What was the draw for you when you decided you were going to go into theater? Did you just want to do it? Was it something that was always in you, or?
Yeah, I did. So my mom was a single mother nurse, and she was working at a summer camp. And my brother, sister, and I just attended the camp while she worked there. And I was 6, and I auditioned for the musical for the kids, and I got a role in it, and I loved it. And then we went home to Illinois, where I grew up, and I started doing community theater. And there was a community theater director that encouraged. I grew up outside Chicago. There's community theater that I worked with on a couple different shows, who encouraged my mom to take me to Chicago for professional auditions. And so it wasn't like any kind of grand design. It was just a kind of luck and weird, you know, fate kind of thing. I was lucky in the sense that I had that kind of support from my director named Ray Bradford, who's since passed away, but was instrumental in my early development as an artist. And then my mom, I was lucky that she was willing and able to be supportive and to make it work. And you know, and then I just started getting work pretty quickly. There's not as much competition, so to speak. There's not as many kids who are really going for that. Maybe there are more now. This is before social media. This is before reality shows. This is before, you know, it was not really like a thing that certainly where I was from. It's not like somebody, if you asked, like if you lined up 50 kids and you said, does any of you think you could be a professional actor or be a star? Like, it wouldn't be anything that would occur to anybody. Right. So it just sort of happened. And I was very fortunate to have the kind of opportunities and support that I've had.
Of all of the, if you could do a ideal Broadway role now, any idea what you think?
You mean of something new or something like a revival?
Either new or old, something that you would have loved to have portrayed in the past, something that you wish would be written now that you would like to be a part of, something like that.
I mean, I had a couple opportunities. I got very close to getting cast as the MC in production, and I was offered a production to play the MC in Cabaret, and I couldn't do it because of the conflict. That's a role that sort of like haunts me, that I would love to get the chance to do at some point. I've gotten the chance to play a couple of Shakespeare roles, but that is something that I would love more opportunities to do. And then there's just stuff that hasn't been written yet. You know, to be part of things that are new is very, very exciting. So those are, you know, one of the Shakespeare roles that I would dearly be very, very interested in exploring is Iago and Othello.
Really?
I really like playing. I really like exploring kind of sort of the darker corners of the human psyche and experience, because I think that's one of the necessary things that art and theater can do, is hold up a mirror to those corners of ourselves, to like really reckon with them and shine a light on them. And I think that's part of the job that we have as actors, to do that. So, and that's just it's a phenomenally complex and incredibly written role.
Do you find that with all of the work, you have such a body of work that you've done over the years, and what you're still working on right now, but you're still always going to be intrinsically tied to Mark. So how do you, I mean, it's silly to say, how do you feel about that? Because there are roles that just come along once in a lifetime.
Yeah.
And that's it. So do you still feel a sense of, I'm trying to think of how I could put it. Like, I know for me, when I watched Rent all those times, when I watched the movie, when I've seen all the company productions of it, those characters resonate. So
Yeah.
the way you've made people feel, how has that affected you personally?
I mean, it's changed my life profoundly for the better in every imaginable way, and it continues to do so all these years later. I'm incredibly grateful to have been a part of it in the beginning. It's an honor to have known and worked with Jonathan Larson. Some of my closest friends in the world are people that I met either in the show or because of the show.
Mm-hmm.
All these opportunities that come my way, almost all of them, at some point or another, a director or producer or cast member will speak to me about the meaning that Rent has had for them. Mm-hmm. So it's a way, it continues to be a touchstone for myself and my work and the quality of the work that I want to be a part of. It's all just the biggest gift, and it continues to be the biggest gift. When I was 14, I did a play that Kelly Bishop was. She was an understudy in, but she was the original Sheila in Chorus Line, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and this is 1986, so she had, I don't know exactly what year she left the show, but several years before, because the show debuted, I think, in late 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember being very struck by, at that time, how much that show meant to her and continued to mean to her, how proud she was of it. But it was like a part of her soul.
Right.
And I mean, it's such a meaningful and iconic show, and it was a meaningful and iconic role. And
right.
There was no sense that I ever had that she was like frustrated by her association with it, or wanted to put it behind her, or wanted to move on from it, or didn't want to just be only remembered for that or anything like that. She was nothing but proud of it. And I think that really made a big impression on me. So when my turn came to be a part of something like that, I think that example helped. No, I don't think it would have been different anyway, but that's part of what I think of is, right. And I think, now Rita Moreno, all these years later with West Side Story, like, I think Rita Moreno had a similar kind of thing with West Side Story. Those of us who've been around a long time, we recognize how rare and special these moments in our lives are. Right. And, and there was a time too when I thought, well, if this remains the best thing that ever happened to me and the biggest thing that ever happened to me, I should be so lucky.
Yes.
And I've had some other great things happen for me, and I'm very proud of being a part of Star Trek Discovery, and that's a whole other new chapter of my life. It feels like a bonus round. I would have been perfectly happy if like Rent remained always the biggest thing I ever was a part of. Seriously. And not that I still have worked on lots of things in the meantime, and happy to work, but I'm not trying to like top it.
Right, exactly. My daughter actually wanted to know, as I said, with her going to the theater, she knows about all the pre-show rituals. Was there anything that the Rent cast did at the time that would be considered, different than maybe other shows? Or
there was nothing collective that we did. We all had our sort of individual things. There was a sign, not a sign, like a plaque that Jonathan's cousin, who was like a woodworker, made, and it just said simply, "Thank you, Jonathan Larson," and it was above our call board backstage. And most of us, or all of us, would touch that or have a moment with that before starting the show. Right. But I can't speak for every single person. It wasn't like ritualized like that. One thing that I will never forget is from the first performance at the end of January 1996 until the middle of July 1996, no one missed a performance. And if you're a part of any show, that almost never happens. That's a very, very long time for no one to miss a performance. Yes. So that level of dedication and excellence was extraordinary. And I think so much of it was because Jonathan wasn't there, and we felt so much of a responsibility to him. So that it's not a ritual per se, but it was like we all showed up.
Mm-hmm. Were you able, when you were done playing the role, did they allow you to take any props or whatnot
Did
from,
they allow me? Whether they allowed me or
or
not,
did you do it without anyone knowing?
I took my scarf. I took my
Did
scarf.
you?
My scarf was a little ratty at that point, and they weren't going to give it to the next actor. They were going to retire it.
Right.
So I took my scarf.
It's a nice touch tone, though.
Yeah, so it's a wonderful touchstone. And all the scarves, they started making the scarf. Like that was the scarf they found at a thrift store.
Really?
Yeah. So they started
Wow.
making the scarves after that, and they made them sort of bigger and bulkier. And so I have the little wispy, tattered original scarf.
That's so funny. Did you see Tick Tick Boom?
Yes.
Did
Yeah.
you enjoy it?
I mean, I enjoyed it. I was very moved by it. It's also very difficult for me to watch that show. I mean, it's very, very, very moving. It's very powerful. It's just incredibly bittersweet to have known. I knew Jonathan when he was sort of on the upswing, and to get that glimpse of his despair and his fears so intimately portrayed, and when he was right on the cusp of his success, and then knowing that he never got to live to experience the fullness of his success is very bittersweet. So it's hard for me to be totally objective about Tick because I feel so close to it. Right. But I thought it was really beautifully done. And I thought Andrew Garfield did a wonderful job. And I'm so glad that Jonathan's words and music and life are that much more known because of it. It makes me really happy for him and his family.
I just have one more question, and that it's your standard advice you would give to someone looking to go into the theater. Can't even say what to expect because each experience is different, but what's the best preparation they could do? Should they do it? Is it that's because everyone has their own take on it. Theater is very demanding. It's more than an 8 day. It's more than an 8 show a week job.
Exactly. So I mean, I would say really do a true reckoning with yourself. Look in the mirror, like to know how hard are you willing to work. It's a grind. It's a wonderful grind, but it's a grind. There's a lot of ups and downs. Are you willing for the uncertainty of it? Are you willing for the joy followed by the crushing sorrow? Are you willing for if you're lucky enough to be in a big hit show that's 8 shows a week, that means that you have to pretty much shut down a lot of other parts of your life so you can be available to the work. Right. You have to take care of yourself like an athlete. Are you willing for that? And if you are, the rewards are immense. But I would counsel people to not try to go into it for fame and fortune. That's not, that's never the goal. That can be an outcome. That's great if it's an outcome, but so for all of those reasons, I would say do a real soul search, and then do the work, get training in whatever venue or with whatever kinds of teachers, and also see a lot of work. Go to see a lot of theater and really get in touch with what is it about these pieces and these performances that moves you and inspires you. Don't just simply be impressed by them. Really start to lean into like, that performance really got me. What were they doing? What is it about it? Right. Not to copy, but to try to almost absorb and transform that energy into yourself. Find it within yourself.